Vocabulary isn't explicitly taught when learning a second language in school. These students are expected to learn the vocab they need by themselves. These learning approaches tend to substitute direct vocab building in favor of learning grammar structures, while assuming that learning vocab will occur passively and through osmosis. However, students who are taught this way are those people who tend to assume that the inadequacies they experience in their language proficiency stem from the lack of vocab. In that if they could only say these words, they would be much, much more fluent.
Okay, I thought I'd introduce this video here with a good quote to get things started. It says, when our first goal is communication, when we have little of the new language at our command, it is the lexicon that is crucial. The words will make basic communication possible.
Hello everybody and welcome back. By clicking on this video, I assume that you want to know the best ways to learn new vocab in whatever target language you're learning. And in this video, I will explain to you just that and more by backing up everything I'm saying with actual scientific facts.
Okay, so the following video is going to be structured by the learning objective as outlined here. So the first thing we have is, why do we need to learn vocabulary words? And then next is, how many words do we need to learn? Followed by, what factors will influence us in learning these words? And then finally is the vocabulary learning strategies. So these are the actual strategies which you can implement to learn new words quickly and more effectively. If you look in the description, I will put some timestamps to these individual sections so you can skip and jump about if you want to.
The need to learn new words in a language becomes increasingly evident when we're exposed to native content. If that's the case, then the question you might ask is, okay, well, how many words do we need to know? And that's a tricky question because it just depends on the level at which you want to reach in whatever language you're learning. One study suggests that college students need to understand 60 to 100,000 words. However, by saying this number, do not fret. This is not a number that many language learners strive to, and it is not needed. A typical adult in whatever language has and can understand about 25,000 to 30,000 words. If that's too much for you still, we'll take the JLPT as an example for an advanced learner. And in the highest level of JLPT N1, you're expected to know 10,000 vocabulary words. Okay, so now we know that we need to know words. We know how many words we need to know. But how do we know a word? You need to be able to use it communicatively in context in a meaningful interaction. So knowing a word goes beyond knowing it in its isolated form. You need to be able to interpret the word in how to write it, how to say it, but also how it can be changed and combined to make other words in other forms. If we take the word sing, that can be changed into singer, sung, sang, etc. Not only this, but we need to know its grammar use, how it's governed by the language that surrounds it. One example of this could be the word's use in its plural form. When learners don't understand the use of the grammar around a word, it typically sounds something like this.
I have a serious problem learning the vocabularies versus, I have a serious problem learning the vocabulary.
The next aspect of knowing a word is its collation, the words that follow it. So this gives the learner an ability to anticipate the rest of the sentence. Can have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich versus can have a jelly and peanut butter sandwich. Or can you pass the salt and pepper versus can you pass the pepper and salt? The next up is its function in a sentence. We have the word student. Very frequent word, appears quite frequently and has a very standard meaning. However, the word disciple, although its function is the same, has a very particular meaning and could sound completely out of place when used in the wrong context. As with every language, a particular word can have a shade of meaning, in that just a simple direct translation may not suffice. For example, stalking, walking, limping, staggering, all of the basic function of walking. However, they have different meaning and nuances, and these different shades of the word have different meanings in particular contexts. There are many factors that influence your second language development and vocabulary acquisition. These include maturational constraints, the frequency, your attention paid in the language, and of course your previous languages or language. So the first one is maturational constraints, to learn a language as you get older. And of course this is particularly important for certain parts of language learning. However, vocabulary acquisition is not one of them. We repeatedly learn new words throughout our entire life. So the next one is word frequency. And of course, this is quite self-explanatory. The more you see a word in a language, the more likely you are to know it. One study had a teacher ask his students to read an English book, and then they were quizzed on the words in the book at the end. Not surprisingly, words that occurred 7 or more times were known by more than half of the students, and words that were much less frequent had very, very little retention in most of the students. By repeat exposure to high frequency words through extensive reading and listening, this can really increase your ability to learn the language quickly and more effectively. Your attention can both positively or negatively affect the ability to learn new words. One such example is emotion. Emotion is a trigger for attention. Students learn words such as evil and hell much more quickly than they would learn words like spoon or container. So this is because these words have a direct emotional response and you're more attentive when learning them. So the take-home message for learning with attention is just to pick words that are personally important to you and that evoke an emotional response. Say that you're to buy an apartment. You want to learn words that will help you in that scenario because they are considered important to you, and your brain will most likely remember those words much more quickly than something that has no relevance to your life at all. Next, we have how the previous languages you know influence how likely you are to pick up new vocab quickly and easily in your new language. It's quite self-explanatory, as the closer these two languages are together, the easier it is for you to pick up these words, such that Spanish people will learn Portuguese much faster than English people, say, learn Mandarin words. Next up, and the final thing we're going to discuss in this video, is the strategies in which we can apply to learn these new words in the target language as quickly and effectively as possible. Probably the most useful strategy is just guessing from context. This trains your brain to think in your target language and not rely on direct translations, but to actually try to understand your target language in the target language by using clues and other factors that will help you decipher what the text means. However, activity-based language learning approaches, vocab learning approaches, fall into 3 different categories: decontextualized, partially contextualized, and fully contextualized. Decontextualized learning strategies completely remove the word from any context that the word was in that may help actually the learner to learn the word. These include strategies such as using word lists, flashcards, or dictionary use. Very common strategy used by language learners to acquire new words. However, many researchers state that the use of word lists to acquire new vocabulary is useless. If you're in a language class and are trying to cram for a test, this method is perhaps useful for short-term, large vocab acquisition. However, the key there is short-term. This is not a long-term strategy if you want to increase vocab in the long term. However, if learners actually handpick the words that they want to learn themselves personally, the rate of retention will be much higher. This goes back to the emotional factor that influences language acquisition. Flashcards are extremely popular with language learners. You write the word you're trying to learn on the front, its translation on the back, and you use this word to get familiar with the meaning of said word. However, these are essentially glorified word lists, just with one word instead of many. The actual copying element, the writing down the word and its meaning, can be somewhat beneficial for kinesthetic learners. However, ways to significantly improve the efficiency of flashcards are to group the words into topics and have their own little deck per topic, to tape the word to objects in your house, or to include pictures into the flashcard of whatever word you're trying to learn. As mentioned earlier, certain students rely too heavily on dictionary use and look up every single word they don't know. There are many studies showing that easy access to dictionary use fails to improve language proficiency and reading performance. I'm not saying dictionaries aren't useful, they are, but you need to know how to use them, when to and when not to use them. The first thing you need to do is to guess with context. And then if you really can't understand it, I want you to ask yourself 2 questions. Have I seen this word before? Has it come up frequently? And 2, do I really need it to understand what's going on in the sentence? If the answer to these questions are yes, then you definitely need to look up this word, find its meaning, and apply whatever system that I'm going through in this video to learn that word. As you saw, decontextualized methods are not the way in which you want to spend your time if you want to effectively learn new vocab in your target language. This section includes strategies such as word grouping, word association, visual imagery, physical response, and semantic mapping. Word grouping involves dividing a longer word list into classified categories, whether that be parts of speech, such as adjectives or verbs, topics such as words related to a hospital, words related to school, the particular function these words have in a language, such as greetings or apologies, or feelings. You can group emotions together, for example. So Nation and Cohen suggest to learn words by theme or topic rather than trying to learn directly related words such as synonyms or antonyms, and to only introduce these directly related words once the original word is learned thoroughly. For example, a certain set of learners might find learning words that are directly related quite difficult to learn, as they may get confused between the two, such as old versus new, give versus take, and under and over, for example. Next is word association, which is quite similar to word grouping, and you attempt to learn these words by associating them with things you already know in that language. These links or these associations can be simple or complex. It doesn't quite matter as long as it's somewhat personal to you. So say you pick the word knowledge. What words do you associate with that? Say book, school, thinking, etc. I personally really like this one as it helps me to effectively store and package information more efficiently than if I was just shown the word by itself. So certain language apps do this very effectively, such as Duolingo. This system just links the new word with a picture. One for kinesthetic learners is physical response. And this just means acting out the word that you're trying to learn. So say previously you've grouped words together, you've grouped all verbs together. So by physically acting out these words, it can help you learn them more effectively by giving you some context. So if I was learning the word to walk, I would repeat it while walking. If I was learning the word to jump, I would repeat it while jumping. And this helps your brain combine the two to more effectively store it. So probably the most effective partially contextualized language learning strategy is the use of semantic mapping. It is the most effective because it uses word grouping, association, and visual imagery. So it involves creating a graphic arrangement of the words you're trying to learn, along with linking them to different aspects of the word. For example, if you're learning the word happiness, you would have happiness in the center of the graphic arrangement with lines spreading from that word in the center to different aspects of the word that you associated with happiness, whether that be word groupings, other words related to happiness, or personal emotions such as things that make you happy, such as going on vacation, family, friends, anything, just something that you personally relate to happiness. This will significantly increase the speed at which you learn these words because you're creating links within your brain. So the very last strategy is fully contextualized. So to provide full context for the words you're learning, you need to use them in the four main areas of language use. Those four areas are listening, reading, writing, and speaking. So you can acquire a large amount of vocabulary through regular interaction with native speakers, and this is known as indirect vocabulary building. So by repeated exposure to these words in a wide range of meaningful context, this allows you to form ties between these new words and prior knowledge. For example, its correlations, other shades of meaning, anything that you can accumulate through this wide exposure. So this method is essential for language development. However, for most learners, direct vocab building is also essential and necessary if you really want to build up your long-term vocabulary in a language. Okay, so in this video, you've learned a lot. If you want to go back and rewatch any particular aspect, I don't blame you. There was a lot of information provided in this video.
Okay, so thanks everybody for making it this far in the video. As a reward, I'm going to go through an example of how I would study some vocab that I found difficult and stuff that you can do to maybe inspire you to learn some words in a way that incorporates the methods I've gone through today. So if we look here, I've picked the word dog, as you can see here, and I've included visual imagery, the picture, the actual word madra. This is all in Irish, by the way, in case you didn't know that. I included the word madra. Madra is a masculine noun, so I put blue in the background. Don't hate me for gender stereotypes, but that'll help me remember that madra is a masculine noun. I've also linked it, word association and word grouping, with anvi, which is an animal. Shul is to walk, so you walk your dog. And tafin, which is to bark, which obviously dogs will do. I've also included on the right hand side the plural version, madre. So as you can see there, so I've linked both the grammar, bit of grammar, related words and associations, some more grammar, I guess you could say here, with the masculine noun, and also some sentences that involve the word. So it's even lum mawadra is a mawadra machar is far. So this is I love my dog is my best friend. It was kind of cute there, but anyway, yeah, so as you can see, the last thing I'm going to talk about here is, look in the top, it says animokul. This is to group these flashcards into themes or topics by the actual function they serve in the language. So this would be a noun. Yeah, so as you can see here, I've incorporated the different things I was talking about in a more accessible way than semantic mapping, in my opinion. Hey, this was the first attempt at doing a video based off the science behind learning languages. If you did enjoy and perhaps you learned something useful, you can leave a like, comment and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on when I release new videos. For the meantime, you can look at my most recent one, which is here, and yeah, slán go fóill, guys.